Whether you are in the country and listening through Spice FM 94.4 Nairobi or 87.9 Mombasa, or you're in Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, or you're watching us from wherever you are in the world on our live stream, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or you are joining us on KTN Home, a very good morning to you. Let's begin with today's African proverb. It's City Muga.
Let us begin with today's proverb. Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself from flies.
Even the king of the forest, the lion, protects itself from flies. Everybody has an irritant.
Everyone has an irritant. And there was a time in this country where the line of work that our two guests are in, the general line of work our two guests are in, were considered to be extreme irritants. People always pointing out to things you don't particularly want to be pointed out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have they left that box? Members of the evil society.
Members of the evil society have become just part and parcel of everyday life. Yes. And that is the danger. Because when they become part and parcel of everyday life, then their voice just joins the din. The impact is at best minuscule. Yes.
It's not as loud as it ought to be.
They end up losing their groove.
Right. Yes. So our guests in the studio this morning, one is from ICJ Kenya. She's a program officer for economic justice. Jen Muhia, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you.
And then we have Derrick Makhandia. He's a regional officer for Transparency International Kenya. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are discussing enhancing transparency and accountability in governance through access to information. Access to information is such a big thing that we even included it in our constitution and said, you know what, we have it. We even have laws that say every citizen should have access to public information. And even in ways in which we started to break away that mold of Siri Kali by government and saying, yeah, there's some Siri that, we allow you to keep for a while, but not all Siri is Kali. Let us have information and access to this information. This is what you deal with on a daily basis, isn't it, Jane?
Yes, it is.
And when you say access to information, what kind of information do you necessarily talk about? Well, from the economic justice front.
Personally, for me, it's mostly about public sector accountability. And really the issues that most of us are concerned about are issues of public finances. We all pay taxes. We want to know how our money is being applied, how government is prioritizing issues. So at the very foundation of access to information is information held by public agencies that concerns you as a citizen and affects the way you exercise other rights.
Whose public agency? Whose public agency? We were having a conversation in the previous hour about contracts signed and entered into by a privately owned entity and listed, Kenya Power, and independent, privately owned power producers. Now, those contracts, would you consider that public information?
Actually, within the Access to Information laws, the Access to Information Act, if a private entity is in any way applying public resources, then that contract would be subject to disclosure. So if KPLC is in any way exercising public resources and that information affects the general public, then that information should be subject to what we call proactive disclosure even. They shouldn't wait to be prompted. They should just be disclosing that information.
They should willfully disclose information.
Yeah.
Hear that, City?
That's what they don't.
Water off a duck's back.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
What if they don't? As we have often seen is the practice. There have been calls over and over again from, private sector, civil society, say, look, let us know what is going on here. Because that then could explain some of the high costs that we see and the mismanagement issues later. So they don't. Then what?
We have options. The formal process for requesting for that access would be writing to the CEO, who is considered as the Access to Information Officer under the Act. Then you give them 21 days to respond. If they do not respond within that 21 days, within the 21 days, they should be able to tell you what is the decision on your request. they can either tell you, look, we need more time to consult on this information, and they're only allowed to do that once for another 14 days. But if they're not forthcoming at all, then you go to the Commission on Administrative Justice, which is the commission that is obligated to oversight the Access to Information Act. And then from there, the commission will look at your complaint, and then they will investigate. They have investigatory powers, and then they can issue orders. And those orders are also binding on this public entity. If that does not work out, court is always an option also to sort of force the public entities to do what they're supposed to do in law. Yeah.
Derrick,
Yes.
as Transparency International Kenya, have you tried to access some bit of information and you actually were able to do it without having to go through the whole process of getting them forced to do it through the court, or even going to 1, 2, 3 offices? Have you, as an institution, applied for certain information, access to certain information, and actually got it?
We have done, and there are some bits of information we've been able to obtain. But before I get into that, let me get back to Chris. He called us Evil Society, and he gave us a not so warm welcome. I think the way things are happening, there's a change in how a lot of institutions are engaging the government these days, especially when we got the new constitution. You know, before we did not have enough platforms to engage governments in a different way. We did not have the legal instruments, the institutional frameworks. So the way we engage the government these days in terms of calling out the government, seeking information, can be a bit different. We explore options like the court, institutions which are supposed to guarantee some of these information and corrective measures, disciplinary measures. We engage them. So we active, Daktari. Yeah, but in terms of the progress that we've made in accessing government information, there has been a lot of progress, especially at county level. There are a lot of counties which are proactively disclosing information, and whenever we seek those informations, those bits of information, we are able to receive them. But we are not there yet. I think we still have a lot of resistance and resilience from governments in terms of disclosing information, whether proactively or by request. So there's still a lot of challenges in that. I think we still have the old block, the old way of thinking among especially senior government officers. And it seems the idea that they can disclose significant information, especially information such a strange thing for them to accept. And so when sometimes we really have to push.
Let me pause you there, Derrick. Okay, yes. Give us examples. We wanted this information, we requested for it, we got it. We wanted this information, we requested for it, we're still hearing crickets. Just 2 cases.
You're really putting me on the wall, eh?
Yeah,
But
I mean, because I just don't want us to have a conversation about, yes, we know there's been progress, there's been this and the other, and then we're talking about enhancing transparency through access to information. If it's working, so why are we talking about it?
Actually, what we're actually asking for is a little transparency on this matter.
Okay.
Yes.
There was a time we requested for information on COVID-19 budgetary and donations that the government had received in terms of, you remember when COVID was beginning?
Yes.
And we requested information, and we were able to get that information. We've made so many access to information requests for information to county governments. We've been able to receive them. But a few examples on the information we've not been able to receive, the SGR contract. We did request so many times, but we have not been able to receive that information to date.
Why do you think that is? And maybe we can also hear from you, Jane. Why is it? Because oftentimes they say that if you can understand the intricacies of an issue, then it will allow you to be able to then get your solution. So now, if this problem keeps coming up, that the access to information is difficult, there is a reluctance to share this information, why? Why do you think that is?
I was actually reflecting on this just yesterday was the International Day on Access to Information, and basically for me, we have the relevant laws, we have the bodies, but I think the more difficult thing to change is the culture. The culture is really what we are struggling with, where people feel, and I was trying to correlate it with the context of even in our homes. We were not brought up to ask for information from our parents. If you go to school, you don't ask your teacher. Decisions are made for you, and then you're supposed to just accept them. Think about even seeing a doctor. We don't even ask about the diagnosis. They give you prescriptions, and you take them and you go to the pharmacy. Because when you ask, they hesitate, and you're like, also, I'm not supposed to ask for this information. So if you think about it that way, it reflects in how our public officials operate. So that they feel this information, it's from a very negative point of view. They feel that, why are you asking for that information? Are you looking to expose me? And those are questions we have been confronted with when we ask. They say, uliza mkubwa. Have you been authorized to access this information by mkubwa? So it's just, I think that's the struggle. Because that you can't address by law. We have the constitution, we have broad frameworks. But then how do you change that perception that this information is private and confidential? Or it has to be authorized by so-and-so? I might just be asking because I want to know if you're carrying out a school project in my area. I just want to know. I'm a parent in that school.
Right.
So I just want to know what your priorities are, who's being given that contract. I might just want to know. And legally, I'm not even supposed to give you reasons why I want to know that information.
But does it not also point out to something fairly nefarious in our system, where someone who is in some quasi-authority has a connection with somebody who has real authority, and so everything that they do automatically relates in their minds. So it's like, I cannot give this information because it might place this person in a bad light.